Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the dev server and it's time to have a look at a new Czechoslovakian vehicle that is coming to the Soviet territory. This is the M53-59 and it's basically a long bed truck which has access to a dual set of 30mm on the back. It looks absolutely crazy, and it's another one of these high velocity, high RPM guns, which is going to be very good as an AA. The BTR ZD got added, the Istavak, the Bozvak, and all those vehicles all made quite a large impact on the game, and the M53-59 is going to be no different. It's one of those which looks pretty funky, and I actually kind of like the look of it. Very much reminds me of a dystopian future where kind of Mad Max X in a way, and you know, just put together a bunch of hodgepodge parts, which is nice. The rotation of the gun is great on this general platform. It has good gun depression for the 30mm, and they also have extremely long barrels for them. There's only a few issues with the vehicle which may hold it back in this regard. The major one is the ammo and the fact that you don't get a ton of it, and also at the same time it takes quite a long time to reload, and the magazines themselves are not exactly the largest, and also the gunner is the only one in this situation that's actually exposed. He's in this bucket at the back, which means that he has no armor on his head, so you can easily just shoot down into it. That might not make a difference though, since the rest of the vehicle really has no armor either. From the top, only 6mm basically, and then on the front 10mm is the most you're gonna get, and the actual structural steel of the truck itself is the only part which is decently armored. So yeah, survivability is not a strong point of this. It does have 5 crew though. It has 2 loaders here, and then a commander and a driver and a gunner. So if you take out the gunner, this vehicle will be pretty operational. It's not really going to change how it does business. 10 tons as well, with a 110 horsepower engine, which is sat in the front of this, obviously with the transmission as well. It's pretty mobile for a vehicle, but I would say its reverse isn't exactly the best. If you want to target this thing and go after it, you definitely attack this like frontal hub here, because that's where all of the important stuff is, apart from the guns and the guy. But if you target this, you'll nuke it, whereas if you go for this, you won't. You'll only be able to kill one guy, and then maybe you'll be able to deal with the guns as well. The interesting thing about these guns though, since they are quite long barreled with quite a high velocity, their penetration on some of their rounds, such as this HVAP, is quite high. 91mm at 0 degrees, 68mm and 21 at 30 and 60 respectively, is kind of nuts for a vehicle like this. Usually you see around like the 60-70 mark at most, but this one is a little bit higher. So you got to watch out. If you're around this BR and you're in a light tank, this thing will just straight up shred through you. It doesn't have any stabilizers or anything like that, but because of the rate of fire and just the general amount of rounds which are coming down range, some will at least hit you and you will end up dying. The vehicle is going to be pretty good as a light tank killer and also as an air killer, because its targeting speed, being 34 degrees per second, is quite nice on it. The only downside, as I said, is the simple fact that, you know, it doesn't exactly scream survivability. It does get artillery though, which is nice. No scouting because it can defend itself. And a lot of people have been asking, why is this coming to the Soviet tree? Which I think is a fair point, especially after the last few updates with the Soviet tree. But one thing's got to be understood. About a year or two ago, the Soviet tree in terms of AAs went from the ZSU-37 to the ZSU-57-2, which this is a weak AA, this is a weak AA, this one's also a weak AA, and this one's an okay AA. So basically, you went from 3.0 in the Soviet tech tree all the way up to 8.0 before you got what was even classed as a decent AA. They added the ZSU 37 too. Still not a great AA. It's not great. Obviously, this is more of a tank destroyer than anything. And then they added the BTR ZD, which was your first AA, which you could actually use in these lineups here. But you've got to remember, development of stuff isn't done instantly when it comes to Gaijin. You know, they plan 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to whatever amount of years ahead. So stuff like this will have been in the pipeline basically at the same time, and whichever one was ready to go was put in first. Now, the argument can be, can this be added to another tree to try and help it out? Yeah, you can maybe chuck it at a different tree if it makes any sense. Maybe if, I don't know, the steering wheel is made in France, maybe you could throw it in the French tech tree. Who knows? But that's why it's in the USSR tech tree right now. There's a lot of nations with not a ton of nice AA options in the mid-tiers, and over the last years or so, there has been a real push to try and improve that, and that is very nice to see. Camo-wise, it's pretty standard, mid-tiering Soviet, so a few interesting ones. The only issue I have with the camos is it doesn't affect the color of the gun. So if you actually want the camos to flow and look nice, you've got to pick ones which actually have like the gun color with them. You can see with something like, I don't know, the forest camo, it kind of just sticks out because the gun and the ammo are just green and everything else is white. And with something like the forest camo, it kind of fits, right, because of just the overall colors. And that's a bit annoying. Like you can see with the tricolor, it kind of sticks out too because it's the slight different shade of green. But you know, it's not a big deal. It's just sometimes it's nice to have things to look a little bit better. The other rounds that you get, so you get an FIT round, and then the default round, which is just HVAP and FIT. I'm sure a lot of people will probably just take the default round so you can be good against everything, but for me I prefer a little bit of specialization for a vehicle like this. So you can see the guys in the bucket at the back, and the fire rate is pretty nice on this thing. So 230s as well, so you'll end up doing a decent amount of damage to things, and you have two sets of magazines that have quite a lot of rounds in them. So yeah, it's, if you're a person like me who's not great at aiming, you can at least have a few rounds to be able to sort yourself out. I have found stuff like the BTR ZD and also the Istvac and the Bosvac a lot easier to use than stuff like the M19 and also oh my god. Where are you going? The M19 and the M42. And this one seems to be much more on that setup as well. That Heinkel just had a death wish. But overall, I think this vehicle is quite cool. As I said, it's very Mad Maxy. I like vehicles like this, just oddities, which, kind of fit in the game. I don't think you would see vehicles like this. They must have broken the Heinkel. He's not loving life right now. He's just trying to commit Sudoku. But I like vehicles like this that offer something slightly different, look slightly different, and kind of fit in the game in an odd way. And I wish we had more stuff like this. I'm sure we will, kind of going forward. Is he just not starting his engines? Like, what's going on? He's really struggling at the moment. But with the pen that it has, you can even go through the front of Panzer IVs and things like that. So if you see one of these steaming around a corner, be a little bit careful at the end of the day. But hopefully people enjoy this one. Hopefully people aren't that mad that it's in, obviously a tech tree that's more already, pretty beefy. We'll have to see as it goes on. Hope you all have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Millie Draper, Juan the Panda, Nick R. Kupila, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie B. Young, Peter Grayling, Jerry Provolt, Bareen, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, Derek R, and Lafouche for supporting the channel.